By now, you've probably heard my magic wand story. It's a brand that's been part of my personal journey for more than 20 years. But no matter how many times I sing Magic Wand's praises, I'll never be able to fully capture the story of this incredible brand. Well, now journalist and author Kate Sloan just completed a limited audio series documenting the history and impact that Magic Wand has created over the last 56 years. It's called Making Magic. And the series chronicles Magic Wand's incredible brand story through interviews with nearly 40 experts, performers, business owners, educators, and fans. So I got a sneak preview of this series, and what I loved is that Kate weaves together snippets from all their interviews into this amazing story arc. She covers Magic Wand's journey from appliance store massager to its legendary influence on culture and sexual independence, and it's all just fascinating. The first episodes of Making Magic are available now at makingmagicseries.com or on all popular podcast platforms. Just search for Making Magic or visit makingmagicseries.com today. What does it mean to be bold?
It means chasing what you want. Not just taking what you get. And the point is to pick something, even though that thing may or may not work out, it still helps build that boldness muscle.
You're listening to Sex with Emily. I'm Dr. Emily, and I'm here to help you prioritize your pleasure and liberate the conversation around sex. So how do you be bold in the bedroom? Why would you want to be bold? I've got the boldness queen herself, Jen Cohen from the Habits and Hustle podcast, to tell us how to design the life you actually want, including, of course, your sex life. Jen explains the 10% target mindset, the difference between what you want and what you need when it comes to sexual partners, how to build better intimacy habits, and how to normalize failure so that you can take more risks. That's where boldness comes in, to identify what you want and be brave enough to work for it. Intentions with Emily. For each episode, join me in setting an intention for the episode. So when you're listening, what do you want to get out of this episode? How might it help you? Well, my intention is to show you how mindset changes and a dedication to boldness can transform your life in and outside of the bedroom. Please rate and review Sex with Emily wherever you listen to the show. My new article, Embodied is the New Sexy, 5 Benefits of Living a Radically Embodied Life, is up at sexwithemily.com. Check out my YouTube channel, social media, and TikTok. It's all at Sex with Emily for more sex tips and advice. If you want to ask me a question, leave me your questions or message me sexwithemily.com/assemily or call my hotline 559-TALK-SEX or 559-825-5739. Always include your name, your age, where you live, and how you listen to the show. And it's totally cool to change your name or choose to remain anonymous. All right, everyone, enjoy this episode. Jen Cohen is an entrepreneur, best-selling author, brand strategist, international speaker, podcaster, and educator with a specific focus on building healthy habits to drive positive behavioral change. Her viral TED Talk is The Secret to Getting Anything You Want in Life, and her forthcoming book, Bigger, Better, Bolder, is available for pre-order now. Learn more at jennifercohn.com. Is this the first galley?
Yeah, it's the
Am
first
I the
one.
first one to see it?
You are the first person to see it.
She just came in. Bigger, better, bolder. Live the life you want, not the life you get. Congratulations on this.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you.
It's only in pre-order right now. It's not.
So everyone's going to pre-order. We're going to put a link. We'll put a link in the show notes.
Thank you.
Put a link in the show notes. So I think what's so interesting about this, though, Jen, is like live the life you want, not the life you get. So some people, they get tripped up with even knowing what they want. So is that because there's so many options? Is that because we're afraid of...
It's that's why we're talking a little bit about the options. I do believe that there's a couple things, right? I think that we don't necessarily need to know our destination, but it's good to go in a direction. And because of that, I think it's even that much more important to kind of do and act versus not, right? So you may not have all the answers. You may not know what you want to do, but at least doing something, even if it's not the exact thing that you precisely want, will at least get you down a road and a path to at least getting closer to what that possibility is.
What does it mean to be bold?
It means chasing what you want.
Chasing.
Not just taking what you get. That's my entire
This
philosophy.
is the book, right? Okay, so chasing what you want, not what you get. Because we all get stuff.
Right. We all get
get something. And most of us settle.
Exactly. And my entire message and point is to not settle and to actually chase what you get. and
chase what you want.
Chase what you want. And the point is to pick something, even though that thing may or may not work out, it still helps build that boldness muscle. Because what people end up doing is they don't chase what they want and they settle for what they get, is because they don't feel that they can get that thing. They don't feel they deserve that thing, and they're afraid of failing. So they just don't try. So if you actually just attempt to make that thing, number one, your chances are that much more improved, because the majority of people aren't even trying, right? So if you're just that one person's actually trying, your number or your potential for success right there is a little bit higher. And even if you don't get it, going down that and getting more comfortable with that failure will open up doors to you that you didn't even know, because you're actually doing something. You're not going to get anything by sitting on your couch and watching Netflix.
True. We all know that, but it's that motivation to get up. So what I love that you talk about in your TED Talk, and I'm sure you talk about it in your book, is the 10% target.
Basically, the idea behind the whole 10% target is that you're making 10 attempts at going after, you're picking one thing that you want, okay? And you make 10 attempts at it. So it can be, it's not just call, or email, but it's just making 10 attempts. There's two things that happen in that process. Number one, you get comfortable with the attempts and you get comfortable with failure, because you're not maybe going to get that. So it becomes you become much more immune to it, right? Because the more and more you do something, the less fear or the less discomfort you have with it, right? So you basically become immune to the failure because you've done something so many times.
A lot of people are so scared of it because they're so afraid of that one time being rejected. But if you do it enough, and we're also not saying that you would ask someone out 10 times and eventually they get to a yes. You just, that person might never say yes, but you're going to keep asking someone out to build that muscle.
It's building the muscle. So like for dating, you can, if you really want to date Bob, okay? And you ask him out and he says no, for whatever reason. Maybe you figure out another way to ask that. Maybe you ask him out a different way. Or maybe you do a group party or have a game night or do something where you invite the person. But again, in that attempt, you may not ask Bob out. And maybe Bob will never go out with you. But maybe you'll meet Bob's friend. Or maybe you even asking Bob out will at least give you a little more confidence and a little bit less fear about asking someone else out, because you got over the hump by asking Bob out, right? Or you'll meet someone else by that process. There's lots of different clever ways that, again, this is not a scientifically backed 10 attempts you're going to get that thing. That's why I don't want people to think, yes, I'm going to act.
Most people don't try 10 times at anything.
Well, that's my whole point.
When I thought about it, I was like, do I go 10 times or something?
People don't even, now here's where the science comes in and the research. 75% of people don't even make one attempt, let alone two or three, right? Like 18% make two or three. That's why I said, if you're just doing numbers, if you're doing numbers alone, you just asking that person out, like it becomes a pure numbers game if you want to look at that. But the added benefit is that you actually get that comfort level. I also say all the time, you can get much more comfortable asking for the big things in life if you can ask for the little things. So you can start small. So if maybe you don't want to ask Bob out right away because Bob is your dream guy, maybe you can start with asking, Lance out, who maybe, you can kind of like practice the ask a little bit more, right?
What I hear a lot from people is that they are not confident to ask for what they want in the bedroom. They're not confident to ask people out, that there's so many insecurities that just like plague us, right? And so I guess I'm just wanted to know from you, if someone's just so afraid of even asking someone out, asking for what they want in the bedroom, their partner that they're married to. Ultimately, we're all afraid, and that's the universal we of not being loved, and being rejected, and being dying alone.
Rejected. I think rejection is like the universal feel. I also think there's other things that come into play, but I think that is the main one. Self-doubt and fear of rejection are like huge. And I think we all have self-doubt and we all have fear of rejection. And I'm not saying in anything I do that there is a panacea for 100%. You're never going to feel that way. What I just try to tell people is like, I'm giving you strategies to soften the blow. I'm giving you strategies to make it less like potent and to make it much better. And I believe that the 10% target, and I believe, practicing and creating boldness as a skill are ways to take your fear of failure maybe from a 20 down to a 3.
Right. It doesn't go away.
It doesn't maybe go away. And there's always times when it's going to like really be super, super potent, but at least you have now strategies and ways you can make it better. And the best way to get over a fear is to go is really to go through it, right? Mm-hmm. And anything, right? Like we always think in our heads that things are always going to be much worse, right? We always like over dramatize everything, like
catastrophize.
And we catastrophize everything. That's human nature. I do it all the time. That's why a lot of us have so much anxiety and we have so much like internal, stress is because we like have like our brains can either work for us or they can work against us. And a lot of times if we don't train our brains to work for us, the natural place it goes is in a bad place, or we ruminate. And that rumination is what's deadly, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we're ruminating on the wrong things, that will really be a problem.
So the training then is getting more comfortable with that
failure
is the failure, but also is that thinking about what could go right.
You can change the neuroplasticity, like where your brain goes, by a lot of different ways. What you're consuming, the consumption, like what you actually are reading, watching, talking, all that becomes enveloped into your brain, right? So if we change that and change what we say to ourselves, I'm a big believer that's the only way to really like gain true internal confidence, not external confidence, but internal confidence is doing the work and going through the motions yourself. Make sure you're consuming things you're not comparing yourself to other people. You have non-toxic people around you. All those things that you hear everyone talk about all the time. It's like, that's a given, okay? Now what I'm saying is to get real external confidence, internal confidence, not external confidence, is like, do the work and like you have to see yourself, basically progressing and achieving. That's why when I say when you go to the gym, right? Like it's not about necessarily like being the next like, fitness star. It's about the fact, you make a promise to yourself, I'm going to do 5 push-ups today. And you actually do those 5 push-ups, you got 1 more ounce of confidence because you followed through.
You didn't break a commitment to yourself.
You didn't break a commitment. Mm-hmm. And to me, when you break a commitment is when that confidence just starts to shatter slowly.
So relatable. There's so many great analogies to this with fitness, right? Like going to the gym and you go just to be consistent, right? And to keep going. I always talk about that with sex too. People are like, oh, my sex drive is waned and I don't want to have sex anymore. I'm like, that's why you have to always keep your pilot light lit. Because you got to at least always keep yourself a little bit in the mode of sex, because when you stop, it's like going back to the gym for the first time. And you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get through this workout?
Is that true?
It is true.
That makes such great sense. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Think about it. If you stop having sex for a while, you stop masturbating, you stop having sex with your partner, it is like literally akin to going back to the gym after a hiatus, which is how hard is it?
I've never heard that analogy.
Yeah. Okay. So I use that a lot, a fitness analogy, because I know as someone who works out. I also get inspired by your Instagram because you're always like, never miss a Monday. I'm like, I always miss a Monday. Fuck. But Jen, you're consistent and you keep going with it. And that's so true, just a little bit, even if it's 5 push-ups a day. At least you did that and you didn't work out. So with sex, maybe you kissed your partner that day. Maybe you just had 5 minutes of intimacy. You held each other. You stayed connected. But when you just put the sex on the back burner, which most people do for a while, especially if you have kids or you get busy with life, you're like, we'll get back to that. It's not so easy.
So you're saying if you just do a little bit of maintenance, it helps keep your sex drive kind of like rumbling a little bit.
You got to keep it maintaining. You got to send your partner a sexy photo. Keep I always say foreplay all day, or foreplay starts after the last orgasm. Like continue to woo your partner no matter how many years you're together. You still want to, everyone's heard like make an effort, take the sweats off. Like we all know that, but maybe we don't know the why of that. Like why is it important to still feel sexy ourselves, for our partners to feel? This goes for all genders, because we need that little thread to stay connected to your partner, whatever it is. And it could just be like making out or talking about sex, or even, sometimes, the problem with sex too is it's hard to keep having sex all the time. And I'm not talking about continuing to have penetrative sex. Side note is that I want to change the definition of sex. As people think of it, it's like penis goes in vagina, which the truth is for all genders, that's not even applicable. There's not even a penis involved. But what is involved with sex is connection, is intimacy. It doesn't have to be orgasm. It could just be cuddling. It could be, hand holding on the couch watching a show. But so many couples get disconnected from that and they just stop because they don't know how to get back to it. And so that's why even mutual masturbation, I don't care if you get each other off, but you can both lie side by side and have an orgasm. So I'm
interesting. No,
I have a question.
I have a question for you then. That makes sense.
And you're a married woman?
I am. Yes,
I am.
Married
for how long?
I've been, 11 years, a long time. But okay, I want to ask you something about that. Because you're saying, because people always say when you have kids and everything else, the intimacy wanes or you become much more disconnected because you have so many other responsibilities.
We don't prioritize.
And we hear, like you said, I never heard it in the way you just said it with pilot light, which I think is a great analogy and a great thing. But I do hear it in we hear, you have to kind of keep it alive. But in reality, right, when you have that additional, and you don't have kids and you're not married, but I will say this.
That's why, because I was afraid I would stop having sex.
Because in reality, in real time, when you have your own life and you have a career and you do have kids and the other person has that stuff also, time goes by fast. Oh. So what are the strategies to even get it to a place where you want to keep the pilot light on?
After the break, more with Jen Cohen and how to use your bold. Along the lines of keeping the energy going, the flame, the pilot light, staying connected with your partner, there have been studies that have shown that couples who prioritize date night as a non-negotiable, just as important as everything else, brushing your teeth, going to whatever religious institution,
right.
Your date night is you get a babysitter, you do it, and it's nothing gets in the way of it. And you even have rules. Maybe you're we don't bring our phones inside, we don't talk about kids, but it's that night that you just prioritize the two of you.
A few years ago, my husband's name Noah, Noah and I would go on walks every single night for years. It would be how we would connect, right? We would go on these long walks to dinner. We would pick a place that we have dinner. We would walk there and walk back. So that gave us at least usually a 2 mile to 3 mile walk where we had to we have no choice, but we have to talk to each other because we couldn't take our phones. It would force us in a good way to have to talk to each other for a good hour. Mm-hmm. And that's where we would end up catching up with our lives. This is what's happening in my life. This is what's happening in your life. There was a huge gap when we didn't do those walks because I got super busy. I was traveling. He got super busy traveling. The kids again, the kids is a big one, right?
It's huge.
And then, I didn't know what the hell was going on in his life. I literally had no, people would say, I heard that Noah, blah, blah, blah. And I'm oh, really? I had no idea.
Right.
Because both of our lives are so busy. And so we've incorporated these walks back into our life again. And I will tell you, it does make such a big difference. But you have to put that effort in and that energy. And there's been so many times when we would do these walks, I should say, it used to be, let's say, 3 nights a week before we had kids.
Yeah.
Now, if we can say we're going to do it once a week and do it that way on our, date night, I'm telling you, it does make a big impact on that communication. You can use boldness to initiate these very big conversations that are super important so you're on the same page. For example, if you're going into a new relationship or someone that you're interested in and that your main driver is being connected and having emotional connectedness, right? But, if their driver isn't the same as your driver, that could be a real problem in really having a real nourishing, satiating relationship for you, right? Because if you love conversation and talking and that kind of closeness is your love language, so to speak, and they don't have the same one, it's not going to work, right? How they say, your crazy has to match my crazy for the relationship to be good. But initiating these conversations early on, being bold is really, really important. You can also be taking that boldness in all other areas of your relationship, telling your partner what you wanted, what you like in bed, what do you want to do? What do you like to do? What sex position does it feel feels the best. But like taking that boldness can work, like I said, not just in your business, but it can really be helpful and beneficial in your personal life too. And I feel like you, again, get better with being bold in that area by, if you can't ask for that salad at the restaurant that you want, or the sauce on the side, how are you going to get the confidence and the comfort level to ask for that stuff? So these are all building blocks. But
I love it. How are you going to get dressing on the side, and how are you going to ask for the salad in the restaurant and not the spanking in the bedroom?
Exactly.
You got to figure that out.
And I feel like people are like so nervous to ask for this stuff.
Well, Jen, this is why one of the big reasons why I wanted to just punctuate this boldness, because after all these years, it hasn't changed. That the top question I get asked is, how do I get my partner to blank? Fill in the blank. It could be anything. It could be like, take out the trash more. It could be go down on me more. It could be like, talk to me about sex. It could be, how do I get this thing in the bedroom? We are so terrified of asking for what we want when it comes to relationships and sex and dating that we stay mute, we don't say a word, and we take what we can get. To refer back to your book. Because we are so afraid of rejection. And with sex, it's even more loaded than the dressing on the side or the salad, because we're like, this person's going to think I'm a freak, and sex is so taboo, and da-da-da-da. What if I don't get it? So we just are silent. But just to your point, then you end up with somebody who doesn't want the same things you do sexually. They don't want to prioritize intimacy. Sex actually isn't important to them. Have all these difficult conversations before you get really serious with someone, but also have them throughout your relationship. Even if you've been with someone for 20 years or 2 months, it doesn't matter. Start having them now. You're going to build a muscle. You're going to get your needs met. And you can say it in a way that, this is actually, I'm really nervous right now. I'm practicing. I just listened to this podcast about being bold. I realize I'm not that bold, but what I've been dying to talk to you about is our sex life. And I realize that it's really important to me that we have more, that you initiate sex more in the bedroom. I love you and I'm so attracted to you, but I feel like I've always been initiating. This is really hard to say, but could you initiate more? That's a conversation that we just did a podcast on initiating sex, wildly popular podcast. So I can't tell you, Jen, across the board, they'd much rather tell their partner even I wish you would go to the gym, or why don't you make dinner enough, or why don't you take care of the kids? But the sex is just locked up in a box and they won't do it. So I want to know, I'm trying to encourage people to take what you're saying about boldness and apply it to the bedroom.
You could be super bold in one area of your life and be completely the opposite in all other areas, right? You can build your bold in lots of different areas.
Build your bold.
Building your bold in a lot of areas that you may need kind of some help with, right? Okay. That's the first thing. I also think being super curious is a really great way of getting to your bold, right? How I would approach it would be, I would do a little bit of trial and error first to see what we're dealing with. And then once I know that and feel where we are, then I would pose a lot of questions. Okay. What do you think about this? Do you like this? Have you tried that? And I would be gauging a lot of it based on their responses. And that's how I think that's how I would use my bold. I would be asking for what I want. I'm not saying you're scurrying around the issue. You're actually not. You're an information gatherer.
So go into the curiosity information gathering part, because that's brilliant.
I think, thank you, a big part of boldness is using that curiosity to information gather, right? Because I'm naturally a very curious person anyway, so I will ask a lot of questions. But for people who are not naturally as curious as me, I think that is another skill that they should be cultivating to become more bold, right? Because you could get a lot of information, or you can assess the situation really well by kind of asking questions out of curiosity about that person in a way, though, that's very helpful for the two of you in the relationship.
Okay, so let's apply it to something then.
Okay, I'm gonna, but like I said, a big part of it is and I think you said this how you are also. I never want to jump to a conclusion. So that's why I think the trial and error is really important. I like to assess myself, to kind of information gather on my own. And before I start just basically drilling with questions and questions and questions, although I've been known to do that too.
Yes, you do.
But I do think that you, again, can start small by asking little questions. But you also have to be self-aware. And I think that if the more self-aware and the more cognizant you are of your partner and you and the dynamic, it really helps. If you have zero self-awareness, you're not going to be able to ask the right questions, right? So you have to know yourself what actually works for you, not what you want, but what you need. I think want and need are so different, and people don't talk about the difference.
What would you say the difference is?
For example, it's like, I really want my partner to look like Chris Hemsworth, right? But do I really need him to look that way? No. Does he have to be 6'4", look like Thor? No. But if you know what I mean? Like, that's not a real need. But what I really need more than anything, my core driver, is I need somebody to be a good listener and who has the interest in like connecting in an emotional way. That to me is my driver, 100,000%. And if your driver is, I like adventure, I'm an adrenaline junkie, I like lots of people around me, and I want to have lots of friends and keep it on the surface, probably not going to be my person. It won't work in a lot of other ways because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you do one thing a certain way, typically you're going to be doing the other things a certain way.
Sometimes couples forget to do the things that they love together. Like, so doing the walks again.
Or
we start to talk about the most, like I would say, like, what are the 3 most memorable times you've had sex? And then we'd write it down and we'd exchange a list. And we'd say like, okay, well, we both agree that it was that time that we were on vacation and the wind was blowing and you had a pina colada, whatever. Like there's a great sexual DNA in that answer. Like there's something in there. There's a kernel of hope because that was hot. And we both agree. What was in there? You were feeling great that day because the kids were with a sitter, and I was feeling great because I just got that deal. Then we have to also understand what turns us on. When do I feel most in my body? What arouses me? I mean, it is. Listen, if it's totally dead, then like...
No, but my question to you is really more, in your experience, what do you find happens? Do you think that most people implement some of this? These are great things that you're saying, Em, and like the strategies are great, and I think that everything you're saying sounds great. I'm curious, do people actually implement it, and what is the success rate of it?
I think that they have to be bold and find out, because most couples will wallow in bad sex, no sex, mediocre sex, even mediocre sex for the rest of their lives because they don't want to have a bold conversation. They don't want to face it. They're afraid of it. So I think that it runs the gamut. Like, yes, there's couples where it's like totally dead and they realize that they'll never get it back. But I think a lot of couples sort of have a resurrection. They realize that they need to talk about it and connect, and they start to figure out their desires and arousal. They like start to watch porn together, or they start to buy toys, or they start to like fix their hormones or talk about fantasies. Like, there's a million things you could do. And that's like, I talk about
that's a good point.
There's a lot of things you do. I have them run through like therapy, their bodies, their hormones, their trauma, untreated. There's a lot of reasons why we don't. But I think that if you could get 2 willing partners who really are prioritizing their sex life and their relationship, I believe that most couples can figure out a way to get back to that if they both want to.
Right.
If someone doesn't want to,
you just said it.
That's it. If one person doesn't want to and the other person doesn't, like, say goodbye. For couples like this, get a therapist. Go to therapy. Like, you have to. Like, if you're not willing to go and stick to it for 3 months, once a week, then you're not really caring about it. Then you don't actually can't say you
So I think that's really the big thing. Like, do they actually care? But I also really think that this is just like from being a lay person in the world. I think there's so many other factors and variables that play in that make it difficult, right? Not to have that bold conversation, but I think the problem is in the follow through and in the fact that once you don't have it, like you said,
it's habits though. Too. I was going to ask you.
Well, I was going to say it. This is what I was going to say to you. It's hard to bring it back, but the only way I think that people can actually doing is actually applying the same methodology is practicing it again. Like, sometimes you could talk too much about it and just start doing it again. Like, get that pilot light back on by keep on trying and trying and trying. And maybe eventually it becomes part of your daily ritual again.
Yeah, it will.
And like, you can talk it to death. That can ruin it. So like, at the end of the day, if you're not having sex with somebody, you're losing that intimacy. It has like a whole rabbit hole effect of all these other shitty things that will happen in the relationship. So if you could just like start just doing it. Like, don't think about it. Sex begets sex. Just start doing it again. Like going to the gym. Just go. Put on your shoes and just go. And it may be really hard the first time, and it may be really hard to get through it. And Eventually you're going to get through it and it'll be fine. And then the second time you do it and you go to the gym, it gets a little bit better and a little bit better, a little more comfortable. And eventually maybe it becomes part of your rhythm and you become a gym rat again, you know?
Yeah, but it'll be a sex rat.
A sex rat.
This is what I recommend all the time. Like, make it a priority.
This is how you build a habit. There's so much like noise and around all of this. Like how you actually build a habit is actually doing the thing that you want to do and then doing it over and over and over again.
So let's do that with
intimacy.
It's
super simple.
So what we're saying is do that with intimacy.
Yeah, and it may not be very romantic. It may not feel really great at first. Eventually, you'll get more comfortable with it. The only way to get you to your end point is to actually do it.
Jen, I'm going to ask you the 5 questions. They're quickie questions we ask all of our guests. Ready? What is your biggest turn on?
I love smart people.
Biggest turn off?
Stupid people.
What makes good sex?
Being emotionally connected to somebody.
Something you would tell your younger self about sex and relationships?
To ask for what you want.
What's the number one thing you wish everyone knew about sex?
The more you know someone, the more you like the person, the better the sex will be.
I love it. Thank you so much.
I love you.
Jennifer Cohen, how can people find you? Your book, all the things.
Oh, the book, my book is on pre-order now. It's called Bigger, Better, Bolder. You already said it. And you can find me on Instagram at The Real Jen Cohen or my website. I'm doing a 30-day... Well, actually, go to my website. You can see for yourself.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Oh, wait, you get to your toys.
I know, next time. Okay. That's it for today's episode. See you on Tuesday. Thanks for listening to Sex with Emily. Be sure to like, subscribe, and give us a review wherever you listen to the podcast, and share this with a friend or partner. You can find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Sex with Emily. Oh, I've been told I give really good email. So sign up at sexwithemily.com. And while you're there, check out my free guides and articles for more ways to prioritize your pleasure. If you'd like to ask me about your sex life, dating, or relationships, call my hotline, 559-TALK-SEX. That's 559-825-5739. Or go to sexwithemily.com/askemily. Special thanks to Acast for powering the Sex with Emily podcast. Was it good for you? Email me, feedback@sexwithemily.com.